You're listening to the Nourished Child Podcast, episode number 35. 8 tips to help your child snack better. I'm Jill Castle, registered dietitian, child nutrition expert, and host of the Nourished Child Podcast, a show about childhood nutrition, feeding kids, and dealing with the ups and downs of raising healthy kids inside and out.
Welcome to the Nourished Child Podcast, a show about childhood nutrition, feeding kids, and dealing with the ups and downs of growing a healthy child. Here's your host, registered dietitian and childhood nutrition expert, Jill Castle.
Snacks. We love them and we hate them. Poor food choices and bad timing is a recipe for an unhealthy snacker. With children snacking 4 times per day and eating almost 27% of their daily caloric intake, folks, that's 600 calories per day on average from chips, cookies, and other treats, and even some kids eating 10 times per day, parents are pulling out their hair over their snacking habits of their children. Do not worry. My 8 tips to help your child snack better will help him or her eat nutritiously at snack time, regulate his appetite, and work on being a healthier snacker for a lifetime. You can find today's show notes with all the links I mention over at jillcastle.com/035. Hey there, welcome back to the Nourished Child Podcast. I'm so glad you're here with me today. If it's your first time, you get a special welcome for joining me and for tuning in and giving this show, which I think is pretty special, a try. We just rolled out of 4th of July weekend, and it was a great one for our family. My husband actually has a birthday on the 4th of July, so it's not just a one-day picnic celebration. It always ends up being several days of celebrating. His family usually joins us. My children are around. It's an awesome, awesome time. And it provided a much needed break for me. For some reason, June ended up being quite a hectic month for me. And some of you know I was teaching an online course to other nutrition professionals, which was a ton of fun. But that wrapped in with my son's summer rowing schedule, which is a twice daily rowing practice, made it very, very busy. Plus, I took a little trip down to Houston to work with a swim team down there and do a weekend-long workshop for their swimmers and work with some of their clients one-on-one. So that was a lot of fun. But all in all, it ended up being a busy month of June. And I can tell you, I'm just really happy July is here and the summer is rolling forward and I can relax a little bit. One of the things I'm doing, which is partly a decision made to help me be able to relax and enjoy the summer a little bit, but also a business decision because I've had a blog for a really long time, since 2009. And so instead of writing a whole bunch of brand new content over the summer, I've decided to spend some time and clean up the blog, eliminate some posts that don't really match my brand or what I'm really doing right now, but also take some of those really great posts that somehow have gotten buried over the years and freshen them up a bit and republish them so that they are more available to people like yourselves who might be looking for information on a variety of different topics in childhood nutrition. So you'll be seeing on Wednesdays, I always post a blog on Wednesdays, and there will be quite a few republished blogs over the next month or two, and perhaps even longer, since once you start digging into a project like that, you start to realize that, oh wow, there's just a lot here I could work with. So That being said, that's what I'm planning on doing over the next couple of months. I also will be doing a live webinar on introducing solids to babies in conjunction with the Beef Checkoff program. That will be coming up on July 25th. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I am in the process also of planning out the next 3 to 6 months of this show. And I have my list of desired guests I would like to invite on the show, but I wanted to open it up to you and mention that if you have any ideas for a show, any burning questions you want me to try to tackle, either on my own as a singular post or a singular podcast like I'm doing today, or if you have a guest in mind you'd like to have me invite to come on this show, I would be happy to do that as well, to address whatever topics you'd like to hear about. So we've had food allergy specialists, I've had ADHD specialists, I've had, a whole bunch of different people on the show over the last almost year. Hint, hint, September is my 1-year anniversary of the Nourished Child podcast, so I'm looking forward to having that come up as well. But I am planning out the show for the next 3 to 6 months, and that includes the topics that I will cover and the guests that I will invite. I'm just opening up the door. If you have some ideas, to go ahead and shoot me an email, jill@jillcastle.com. Let me know what your thoughts are, and I will give those great consideration in my planning efforts or over the rest of this year. Okay, enough about me. Let's get into this show and talk about some of the tips that I use with my clients who I work with, person to person, about snacking and helping their child become a healthier snacker. So, as I mentioned, you can find the show notes for this episode over on my website, jillcastle.com/035. That's 035 for episode 35. And today we are talking about my 8 snack tips to help your child snack better. And as you might have heard in the opening of the show, just a few stats to review with you. Children are snacking 4 times a day, and some are snacking even more than that. Some studies show that children are eating up to 10 times a day. So if we have 3 meals a day, you can do the math. That's up to 7 times of snacking episodes during the day. So we know that snacks are important, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but what the research is telling us is that children are not always making the best food choices when it comes to snacking. And in my perspective, they are oftentimes not having really good timing with their snacking. And so the two work together, this whole idea of poor food choice and bad timing. The two of those things work together to create, unfortunately, an unhealthy snacker. And it's very unfortunate because I have the belief that snacks are good for kids. When you think about their nutritional requirements, they need up to 40 nutrients per day to grow and thrive and be healthy. We also know that children miss out on some really important nutrients. If you've listened to the episodes related to bone health, or if you've read any of my blog posts related to bone health, you know that calcium and vitamin D are nutrients of concern for children. But I do believe that snacks are beneficial and actually even compelling for children. And I have 3 good reasons why snacks are good for kids. Number 1, they help children meet those 40 different nutrients in a day. So if you think about it, it's very difficult to get in 40 different nutrients in the span of 3 meals during the day. So that's why snacks come into play. Of course, younger children like toddlers who have very small, tiny tummies, so their reservoir for holding a large portion of food is actually smaller, they need more snacks during the day than an older teenager, for example, who has a larger stomach and they can consume larger quantities of food at one sitting and have an easier time meeting those 40 different nutrient requirements. The other reason number 2, why snacks are a good thing for children is that they help children potentially control their appetite or regulate their appetite. I hate that word, control your appetite, because to me that sort of speaks about dieting and controlling your body and this, that, and the other. What I'd like to say, rather, is that snacks and meals, when they're timed well, they really do help children regulate their appetite better. And if your appetite's better regulated, then so is your eating, obviously. Snacks at good intervals throughout the day, and I'll talk about the intervals, can really help children regulate their appetite and their eating. And then the third reason is we know that when children have well-regulated appetites and are able to self-regulate their eating, they probably will be at a healthy weight or be more inclined to be at a healthy weight because they're regulating everything really well. I've talked about snacks before on this podcast. You can go back to episode number 9 where I talked about athlete snacks, what a healthy, good, performance fueling snack would be for an athlete. That's in episode number 9. So it would be www.jillcastle.com/009 for episode number 9. And I also talked to Sally Kazemchek of Real Mom Nutrition in episode number 14. And we talked about snacking with her. She and I talked together about that. And that was a very interesting episode. And that's, again, jillcastle.com/014 for episode number 14. That was with Sally of Real Mom Nutrition. Okay, so let's get into my 8 tips for helping your child snack better. And these aren't in any particular order, but I wanted to I'll sound them off sequentially and just talk a little bit about each of them so you have a good idea of what I'm thinking about when I make these recommendations. So my number 1 recommendation is to include nutrients that are satisfying and filling. So this is really great stuff. If you haven't heard this tip before, I hope it really helps you, because when you think about nutrients, there are certain nutrients that have more of a satiating capacity than others. For example, protein. Protein is more satiating to the appetite, more filling, more satisfying for a longer period of time than some of the other nutrients. Why? Protein in foods takes a little bit longer time to digest, so that slower digestion helps children stay fuller for a longer period of time. Protein foods or foods with protein in them will be things like meats, cheese, milk, or other dairy products like yogurt, fish, nuts, seeds. Those types of foods have a good amount of protein in them, and they are going to be more filling for your child. So when I say include a nutrient that's filling or include protein in your child's snack, that is to help them be more satisfied for a longer period of time after they've eaten that snack. Fat is another nutrient that is satiating or filling for your child and even for yourself. So things like nuts and seeds, olives, olive oil, avocado, dairy products with fat in them, so like a full-fat yogurt or a full-fat milk. Those foods that have a fat component to them will be more satisfying, more filling, so that your child isn't coming back an hour later after snack time and saying, "Mom, I'm hungry. That happens a lot when children are only having a snack of one food. So if the child is only having, for example, watermelon for a snack, and I'm not picking on any foods whatsoever, I'm just giving examples off the top of my head here, or they just have some cheesy crackers. Those are great. They taste great. They're yummy. Kids eat them willingly, but they might not sustain their appetite. They might not keep them full for that 2 to 3 hour window before the next meal comes along. So one of the ways to remedy that would be with those cheesy crackers, perhaps offering some real cheese or mixing those with some nuts if your child can have nuts. If your child has watermelon, for example, perhaps mixing that with some cheese cubes or perhaps some crackers or a container of yogurt. So making those combinations, pulling in those nutrients that are filling and satiating for your child will help satisfy his appetite. The third nutrient that is known to be satisfying and filling is fiber. So fiber fills up your tummy and it takes a long time to digest. Foods like whole grain crackers or cereals or breads are going to have a lot of fiber in them and be more satisfying to your child. Foods like fruits and vegetables have a lot of fiber in them. Nuts and seeds, beans, those are all foods that are fibrous and can hold your child's appetite, stretch out that feeling of fullness for a little bit of a longer time. So again, when we think about including nutrients that are going to be filling in that snack time, think about things like whole grain crackers with cheese or yogurt with fruit and granola. You can start to see, that snack has protein, it has fat, and it has fiber. Again, those types of snacks are going to be more filling, more satisfying, and enable your child to stretch out for that 2 to 3 hours until it's time for the next meal. Snack tip number 2, time those snacks right. So time them right. What does that mean? I like to see a space of 2 to 3 hours at least between snacks and meals when you're feeding your child. So when it comes to snacks, I like to see them wedged between breakfast and lunch or lunch and dinner. And sometimes if you have a child that needs a bedtime snack, wedged between dinner and that actual bedtime. When we create those spaces of 2 to 3 hours, we actually allow our children to become hungry. And when they become hungry, then they come to the table at dinner time or at lunchtime or at breakfast time. They come with an appetite and they are going to be more inclined to eat all those foods that you want them to eat, particularly vegetables and protein, foods like lean meats that you're serving. Timing snacks is also important because if they don't have a formal time, then children can get into the rut, if you will, that rut of just snacking all day, every hour on the hour. And that's not good. And it doesn't matter how healthy the snacks are that you offer a child. If your child is snacking 4 times or more a day, it's probably not healthy for him or her. Snack tip number 3. Draw attention to those snacks that you're preparing for your child. Meaning, ask your child to come to the kitchen. Ask your child to sit down at the table. Ask your child to turn off his games, his electronic devices, the TV, all the distractions that takes his mind away from the food in front of him and eating it, and encourages him to be mindlessly eating. I don't know if you caught the episode where I spoke with Marianne Jacobson about how to raise a mindful eater. But one of the things is to make sure that children, when they come to the table to eat, that they are paying attention to eating. Because when they pay attention to eating, they actually are enjoying the food a little bit more. But not only that, they are able to hear the signals of their body when it tells them they are full and they are done eating. Tip number 4 is rotation rules. I see a lot of kids that get stuck in the rut of eating the same old snacks every single day. They come home from school, for example, they go to the cabinet, they grab the same stuff. And the minute that stuff is run out, mom or dad runs out to the grocery store and restocks it. I really love the idea of constantly rotating snacks. In fact, when I work with children and families, I ask them not to serve the same snack day in and day out. I actually ask them not to serve it twice in a row. If you have an afternoon snack one day, the next day it's going to be a different snack. Because I know that rotating different foods, different snacks, brings more nutrition into a child's life, brings more variety into their life, and it can also help them branch out and not get stuck in eating the same old foods every day, which is sort of a form of picky eating when you start relying on the same old foods every single day. So rotate fruits, rotate vegetables, rotate your starches like your crackers or your breads or your bagels, rotate those things and stay away from giving the same thing day in and day out. I also think it's quite fine to make sure that you're always offering either a fruit or a vegetable at snack time. Why? Because the recommendations are to have 5 cups of fruits and vegetables a day. That's a combination of fruits and vegetables should equal 5 cups a day. It's really hard to get 5 cups in unless you're having those fruits and vegetables showing up at snack time. It's nearly impossible to get them in. So that's another recommendation that I always make is to include a fruit or veggie at snack time. Tip number 5 is to get fancy. Don't always serve snacks in the same way, shape, or form. For example, in the summer and the spring, have a picnic. Have your snack outside. Change it up that way. If you're inside, instead of serving your child a snack on a plate, create a platter where you put several different items on the platter, and that platter can be shared amongst 2 or 3 children. So on the platter, you might put a little pile of fruit, like pineapple perhaps. You might put some carrots, so have a vegetable there. You might chop up some chunks of cheese, and you might have some whole grain crackers there. And perhaps you put a little dish of nuts in the center of that platter. So the children have variety, but they also have the ability to pick and choose what they want to eat off of that platter. It doesn't have to be fancy, but it does allow, when you serve that variety and you serve snacks in a different venue or in a different way or shape, it just keeps the spice into the snacking chore for yourself, but also perhaps for them. It keeps it more interesting and vibrant and keeps sort of a spiciness or a spice of life factor included in the whole snacking endeavor. Tip number 6 is to close the kitchen after snack is over. So that does not mean to literally close the doors and lock them, because many of you I know do not have doors on your kitchen. You have an open concept first floor, and the kitchen's always open from a physical standpoint. But I'm speaking figuratively. Close the kitchen. Set a rule. Kitchen's closed. Snack time's over. The kitchen's closed until dinner. It will reopen then. When you close that kitchen, you're setting a boundary, letting children know that snack time is over and there's no more eating until our next meal. When you get those nutritious foods on board, you time them right, you ask your children to sit down and pay attention to eating. Those top 3 tips, for example, really help you be successful with closing the kitchen, because then you know that you've offered a nutritious snack, you've timed it correctly, you've asked them to pay attention to eating so they have stopped eating, theoretically, when they're full and done. And then you close the kitchen and they understand. They understand that there's a window of time where the kitchen is not available for eating, for grazing, for snacking of any sort. Closing the kitchen is a way to set a boundary that is actually very authoritative in nature. I spoke about your feeding style in one of the earliest episodes of The Nourished Child, and I will include that link in the show notes. But when you understand your feeding style and you understand that you want to be moving towards more of an authoritative feeding style, you will understand that you need to put in rules, limits, boundaries, whatever you want to call them, around food and eating in order to help your child self-regulate his food intake. It's not punitive in nature. It's an exercise that helps your child build the foundation and sustain his ability to self-regulate his intake. Tip number 7 is to include more than one food group in the snacks that you offer to your child. So the food groups are, just to recap really quick, there's a protein group, which includes meats and beans and nuts and seeds and eggs. There's the dairy group that contains dairy products such as milk, yogurt, cheese. Fruit group, vegetable group, grain group. So the grain group is things like cereal and crackers and bread, bagels, muffins, that sort of thing, pasta, rice. And there's fats as well, and those are your oils, butter. Nuts and seeds have a natural amount of fat in them. So you want to include more than one food group. And I generally say for snack time, include 2 to 3 food groups. So as I mentioned earlier, you might have yogurt, fruit, and granola as a snack. The yogurt is the milk group or the dairy group. The fruit is the fruit group. The granola is the grain group. Or you might have cheese and crackers. Cheese is dairy, crackers is grain. You might do cereal with milk and fruit on top. Cereal is the grain. Milk is dairy. Fruit is fruit on top. You might do hummus and veggies. Hummus is the protein. Veggies is the vegetable group. So you get the idea. You're including more than one food group at snack time, and preferably 2 to 3 food groups. It makes a lot of sense because when you include a variety of different foods and you're targeting 2 to 3 of the different food groups, you automatically are targeting nutrients that your child needs. So you're automatically stepping up in your nutrition offerings because you are targeting food groups that provide certain nutrients that are important for your child to grow and to thrive. I tell children all the time that snacks are a mini meal. They're not just one food. They're a combination of foods that make up a little small mini meal. And that in and of itself, I think, can be very psychologically satisfying to a child when they see that there's more than one food that they get to have at snack time. My last tip is tip number 8, and that is to strategize the junkie requests. So I am not advocating that you take out all the treats, sweets, and any other foods that you determine are unhealthy for your child to have. I'm not advocating that you eliminate all of that. What I am suggesting, though, is that you find a way to include those foods in your child's diet, whether they're at mealtime or at snack time. But sometimes, your child, after a long week, for example, might ask for ice cream after school or might ask for cookies. Figure out a way that you can make that happen. Because remember, when we do include those foods on a regular basis, and a child can expect those foods to occur in a predictable way, everyone seems to be a little bit calmer around those types of foods. So, for example, when my children were growing up, we didn't have sweets as a snack, or really even as dessert, or in our lunch boxes when they were in school. So Monday through Friday, I packed their lunch almost every day. I did not include sweets. We didn't have dessert at home. And my rationale was that, we're in school, your brain needs learning foods, and that's what we're going to eat. We're going to focus on the foods that nourish your brain because you're in school and you're learning, and that's really important. But on Friday, when you get out of school, you can have whatever you want. And what my children wanted at the time when they were younger, they wanted to go to the brand new yogurt shop that had opened up in town. And so that's what we did for many, many months that particular year. I would pick them up on Friday from school and we would go straight to the yogurt place. That was their snack. And I would say, this is your snack. Have what you want. You can, within the price range I gave them, you can order what you want. But this is your snack and we won't be having anything else to eat until dinner time. So that was clearly understood by all. And what really worked for us, I believe, is the fact that they knew that they were getting that sweet snack on Friday after school. They looked forward to it. There was no question about it. There was no strings attached to it. They didn't have to eat something healthy to get that snack. I never took it away from them for any reason. It was just, that's what we did. And that built a lot of predictability into this whole idea of sweets and treats. They knew they were getting what they wanted. They knew when they were getting it. And it really calmed down any kind of pestering for dessert or snacks in their lunchbox. My point with that story is to encourage you to find a way to have a strategy around those sweets and treat requests that will happen. They will occur. And you're better off being prepared with a strategy than to be sort of trying to figure it out on the fly. One other way that parents have been able to maneuver around those requests for less than healthy foods is to negotiate a healthier or more nutritious option in conjunction with that sweet or treat request. So, for example, if a child comes home and wants chocolate chip cookies for a snack, you could say, okay, you can have that, but you can have some fruit with that, or you can have a glass of milk with that. So you're actually taking that request, you're saying yes to it, but you're pairing it with something that's going to add nutrition to their diet. And I think that's a really also important concept to think about, is we want to come from a place when our children are asking us for foods that aren't the nutritious foods that we're wanting to serve them or wanting them to eat. I think if you can come from it with an angle or an attitude of, okay, well, what can I add to this request that just takes it up a notch in terms of nutrition? So I used to do that a lot with my children too. We would do cookies. They would have milk with cookies. They might want candy, and I would serve it with fruit, fresh fruit. So and they would always eat both of it. They would always go for both of them. So that's another way to manage that too. But I think the important point is have a strategy. Because if you don't have a strategy, it can get really frustrating and your children can take advantage of the situation. And then in the end, there's a bit of a struggle and nobody's really super happy about the outcome. So it's always on the parent to have the strategy. Just, I want to make that clear. Kids are going to always opt for the cookies and the sweets. They love that stuff. I don't blame them for loving that stuff. It is on you to have a strategy and to know how you're going to handle those types of requests. Okay, so just to recap, and I'm sure there are more tips, and some of you might even have some more tips, and feel free to send those to me and let me know about them. I can always add them to the show notes. But just to recap a couple of the points that I made in this show, there are good reasons to have snacks, to have nutritious snacks. One, they add nutrients to your child's diet. They help him or her regulate her appetite and his or her eating. But snacks can also get the best of children when you don't have a good plan, you don't have good food choices, and you don't have great timing, your child can become one of those statistics of children who are snacking more than 4 times a day and getting almost 27% or a quarter of their daily caloric intake from snacks. And we don't want that to happen. So my 8 tips were, number 1, include the nutrients that are filling, such as protein, fat, and fiber. Number 2, time snacks correctly, every 2 to 3 hours. It seems to be the sweet spot for most children. Older children, like teenagers, can go every 3 to 4 hours. But around 3 hours seems to work for most children's schedules and for their age and their development. Number 3, draw attention to snacks. Make your child sit down without distraction and pay attention to eating. Number 4, rotation rules. Rotate food groups. Rotate the shape and the form that you offer snacks. Never serve the same snack over and over and over again. Tip number 5, try a snack platter. Go outside. Change the venue. Keep your child guessing and interested. Number 6, close the kitchen. Make snack time a finite, scheduled occurrence during the day, and then preserve those times before and after snacking by closing the kitchen. Number 7, offer more than one food group at snack time. Actually create a mini meal. And then tip number 8, strategize the junkie requests. Make sure you can have a strategy for when sweets or treats will occur during the week or the weekend for your child, and or you can always up the nutritional quality of a sweet request by adding a nutritious food to it. If you're really stuck with snacks, I have a little ebook available called the Healthy Snack Planner. It literally takes you through step by step which foods to choose, how to serve them, when to time them, all the basics, and it gives you over 50 ideas for healthy, nutritious snack combinations. I also have a free PDF on my website under the tab, I believe it's free resources, and it is 51 snack ideas for kids that you can just go to the website and download for free. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me today on the Nourished Child podcast. I'd love, love, love if you helped us grow. We are growing and it feels so good, and honestly, it feels so right to have a podcast called The Nourished Child grow. Isn't that fitting? What really helps this show grow is writing a review on iTunes. You can go to iTunes, look up The Nourished Child. It will pop right up, and you can click the blue tab that says write a review, and you can write a very quick review there. That helps the podcast come up in search results more quickly and allows other parents to discover, and professionals rather, to discover the show and get the benefits of listening in. You can also subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music, Tuned In, and more. All the links are in the show notes on my website at jillcastle.com/035. If you're not on my email newsletter, I invite you to join me there. Every Monday, I send out a small newsletter with lots of helpful links and information for you. It also is the place where you will hear about any specials on my e-guides, my books, my courses, anything that's happening. You'll hear it there first. I also am part of the Parents on Demand Network. That is a network of podcasters like myself who devote their time to podcasting about parenting. So we have pediatricians on the network. We have myself. We have podcasters who specialize in in breastfeeding, in mothering, a whole variety of different shows that you can listen to. And the POD network, or the POD network, Parents on Demand, has an app you can download to your phone. And when you do that, it's free. When you do that, you will get an automatic update every day of any new show that gets published. So you'll be always in the know. You will never have to go search for parenting podcasts anymore. And I hope you check it out. I'll include the link in the show notes. As always, thanks for joining me today. I'm always so glad you're here listening with me. And please don't ever hesitate to send me an email with your ideas. If you have a guest you'd like to see on the show, make the introduction, send the name along, whatever it takes. I'm game for seeking out new content that will help you in any way it can. Please be sure to give that child in your life, big or small, a loving squeeze today. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Nourished Child Podcast, where the #1 goal is to help you grow a nourished child inside and out.